Today, I've got a couple of phenomenal guests joining me. I've got the authors, the co-authors of The War on Talent, George Randle and Mike Sarraille. George is an experienced talent executive veteran, coach, mentor, and leader known for selecting, building, and reorganizing teams to reach their full business potential. George has 20 years of Fortune 100 and Fortune 1000 global human resources and talent acquisition experience building elite teams. Now, George has began his professional life by enlisting in the United States Army Reserves. While serving in the USAR, he received his bachelor's degree from Missouri State University and was commissioned as an active duty Army officer. George currently resides in Austin, Texas, and is a co-author of the best-selling book, The Talent War: How Special Operations and Great Organizations Win on Talent. He's also the vice president and global head of talent acquisition for an industry-leading cybersecurity firm and managing partner for the Talent War group. Now, on to Mike. Mike is a retired U.S. Navy SEAL officer and former Recon Marine and Scout Sniper. A graduate of the University of Texas McCombs Business School, he's the founder and CEO of the Talent War Group, a specialized executive search firm and talent advisory firm that finds high-performing business leaders for senior, executive, or other critical leadership positions. He is the co-author of The Talent War: How Special Operations. We talked about that, and we are going to dig into a specific chapter in the book today, A players selecting A players. But before we get into all the fun stuff, George, Mike, first off, I appreciate you. Thank you guys for your service to our country, and welcome to the show. Thank you for being here with me today.
Thank you, sir. Glad to be here.
Whew, that was winded. All right, let me catch my breath. Mike, I'm going to start with you, man. Can you give us just a quick little background, a little bit more of your experience that I missed there? Just kind of share your journey into the talent acquisition executive search space.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we were talking before this started. We're both from the Bay Area, born and raised, and eventually I enlisted in the United States Marine Corps. Served in their version of special operations. It wasn't part of the United States Special Operations Command yet, but it was known as Recon, Marine Recon, and I was a scout sniper as well. At some point, they said, hey, you're doing a half decent job. Would you like to go back to college and get your bachelor's and become a Marine officer? And of course, the answer was yes. The war hadn't kicked off yet. And so I went to Texas A&M, which was a culture shift for a California kid. Finished my degree, and the war had actually kicked off. 9/11 happened when I was at Texas A&M, and I made a decision to get to the front as quickly as possible to join the SEAL teams. And so I went through that training, which has the highest attrition rate of all special operations training. Served a number of deployments on the West Coast SEAL teams out of San Diego. And then eventually received an invitation to, actually before that, I led leadership development for the young SEAL officers to prepare them to become combat leaders, which is where I really dove into leadership development. And then eventually I received an invitation to try out for a very unique group, which only represents 2% of the entire SEAL teams. Only 1 out of 35 SEALs has what it takes to make it to the next level. And that place is called Naval Special Warfare Development Group. And so did just a ton of combat deployments over there, in all 10 combat deployments. Consider myself very fortunate to have served, let's be honest, next to some of the highest performing men and women in the world. And that particular group has one of the most robust behavioral interview processes. It's 9 months long. You can consider it a multivariate interview process, from psychology to watching you in action. I mean, you've got a heart rate monitor on throughout those 9 months to see how you can regulate your stress. They put you in very strange scenarios for which there is no book solution. And that's really where I started to develop this passion for creating winning teams. And then eventually, I was going to retire, chose to go get my MBA at the University of Texas. And as I was identifying what I wanted to do, I decided to, after I had an unsuccessful nonprofit with the help of a guy named Admiral William McCraven. It did a lot of great work, but we ran into politics and we had to shut it down. I sort of took that nonprofit to a for-profit and originally created an organization called EF Overwatch. My two business partners were Jocko Willink and Leif Babin, the co-authors of Extreme Ownership. And then we've separated from them because we were just going in a different direction. That's fine. And we created the Talent War Group because the book had hit with some traction. And EF Overwatch didn't really support the brand of the book, and so that's why we named it Talent War Group after the title of the book, The Talent War. And we're having fun. We do executive search. We're heavy in leadership development. We will come in and build best-in-class talent acquisition and talent management programs for organizations. George?
Awesome. Love it, man. Love it. And George, can you beat that?
No. And yeah, we argue who goes first. With all the gray, Mike's the global war on terror warrior. I'm the Cold War warrior. Yeah, I got the leadership bug, and when I got my commission, was fortunate to be in the Berlin Brigade in '89. I stayed in through 2 years of line company command. But for me, unlike Mike's career, mine was headed towards a lot of staff jobs. And I hate to say this to Mike, I don't think I've ever uttered this line, but I, at the time, was looking forward to a career full of Harvard graphics, which preceded PowerPoint. So that gives you the age thing away there. So I jumped, I went to a veteran firm, landed at a big box retailer like we talked about, but just realized it was such a bad fit. And fortunately, when I joined a consulting firm, I had a family circumstance, and the only position I'd get was in HR, and it just clicked. And so I've spent 20 plus years in the HR talent acquisition space with some, really, really big hitters in the IT space, big data, financial services, hedge funds. Then ran into Mike, and, weird that two people, Army and Navy guy, run into one another and nerd out on talent and what it takes to get it. But that's really what's happened.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's cool that you guys were able to connect and find each other, have some similar background. Do you guys ever spar on Army Navy stuff or what?
San Francisco 49ers and the Kansas City Chiefs, I think, was the last time we did, but the Chiefs got their comeuppance.
George.
I am. And so I won that bet, but then the Chiefs go on, and Tom Brady, who Mike's a fan of, obviously, they got their comeuppance.
Yep. Now, Mike, we didn't discuss that. Do you know? I know you and Tom are probably about the same age range. Did you know Tom growing up, or you guys were in the same area?
So I did not. His father sold life insurance to my dad. But hey, you know what? Just that hometown association, proud to be associated with that guy. He's the GOAT.
Yep. It's kind of funny now that I'm thinking about. There's a guy like literally in the next office over here, my buddy Jace, that went to Archbishop Mitty, probably same age as you. You guys probably competed against each other at some point.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So awesome. Going back into the book, one of the things, you talked about right early on in the book, I believe is you, Mike, you were telling a story about Ryan Job, and in the whole chapter about the talent mindset. Can you kind of just elaborate on what the talent mindset means to you, and kind of some of the things you were talking about with the special operations traits and things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, to define the talent mindset, as George and I sort of settled on, is the foundational belief, a core foundational belief, that talent is the most strategic competitive advantage any organization can hope to achieve and hopefully maintain. And that's a big part. Is can you maintain it? So special operations pulls their very best off the battlefield and puts them in charge of what we call assessment and selection of personnel. It's the business term for hiring within the military. And it is the longest behavioral interview out there, 2 years long. But we put our very best for a reason. One, they're representatives of the organization. And what we found about you that is unique about A players, and some people like Netflix likes to call them rock stars. It's whatever you want to, your high performers, is the right high performers have the ability, what we call humble confidence, to put their egos aside, to look at somebody they're interviewing and admit, this young woman, she's going to be a better SEAL than I am. We need to get her into the organization. And if you put subpar players in charge of your hiring, a B player will hire a C player out of fear alone that they don't want to be overtaken. And so who you have representing your organization in the hiring process absolutely matters. And that person, that A player, should also continue to motivate that person trying to get into the organization, should inspire them and build this desire to want to be part of your organization. And that's what A players do. Now, with Ryan Job, from Washington State near Seattle, was a unique candidate in the sense that nobody understood how he made it past the initial standards to get even into SEAL training. He was pretty heavy set, more so than any other student that the instructors had seen in a long time. So a lot of the students, to include the instructors, made a snap judgment of, oh, this guy doesn't have what it takes. Look at him. There's no way. And I even judged Ryan. Ryan asked me one point, hey, how do you think I'm doing? I'm like, dude, I think you should quit. That's what I told him.
Right.
And at the end of Hell Week, after we went from 250 students down to 30 students, as I looked down the line, who's there other than Ryan Job? Because he had nothing but heart and desire. And because he didn't look like your prototypical SEAL, he had gone, in life, he had faced a lot of obstacles, was constantly knocked down, and got back up. And resiliency is key, especially with COVID.
Right.
You want to translate this to the private sector. People that lacked resiliency when COVID hit, they were completely useless to their organizations. They couldn't carry on. And Brian had more resiliency than anyone else in that class, regardless if he was not muscle bound or not.
Yeah, that was a great story in the book. And I think one of the things, if be curious, for those of you that are listening with us live, drop in the comments if you've read the book. If not, you got to pick it up. It's not only incredibly just valuable in terms of the information you guys provide, but the stories, it's entertaining. I was totally hooked in when I was reading it. And it's cool how you guys were able to kind of, share some combat and some of the stuff you guys had going on with talent acquisition. One of the other things that you guys talked about in the A players is you kind of identified the 4 mistakes that an organization makes, C players or A or B players or C players running the hiring, no training. What was it? Hiring homogeneous and then hiring as a secondary function. George, can you elaborate a little bit on those things there and how important that is?
Yeah. One of the things that Mike and I had to do is, when it comes to talent, you could easily boil the ocean, and we tried to avoid that. So there were 4 key mistakes, but there are a whole lot more. You've seen them, and probably a lot of our listeners have, but it's, quantity over quality, that they do that somebody, let me back up. One of the things is people don't define success. They just go to the market and say, I have a vacancy, I have budget, I have headcount. And a hiring manager goes to a recruiter and says, the recruiter says, when's the ideal start date? And they're like 2 weeks ago. It's the answer 98% of the time. We've all heard it. So, they're hiring off of objective requirements. They're fear-based. The people that are interviewing aren't trained, so they're not necessarily tracking the experience. Because one of the other things about A players is A players want to work for A players. So it's not really good that you get an A player in the door interviewed by a B or a C player. And, they're afraid of the red flags, that fear-based hiring, that red flags become more important than the green flags, the character attributes. So the challenge is that if you don't have a set defined process that starts with defining success and understanding what your talent gaps and opportunities and needs are, by the time you've gotten to recruiting talent, that snowball has gathered so much momentum going down the hill that it's not usually just one mistake. It's a series of 4 or 5 on the way down. Right.
One of the things you guys talk a lot about, and I've heard it in a couple other podcasts I've listened to you guys and just in the book, is the whole humility thing, and A players really being able to have humility to go, yeah, you know what? And you just brought it up right now, Mike, hey, this person's going to be better than me. How much do you guys see organizations actually having somebody has humility in a hiring spot?
Here's where people are going wrong. And George and I had a phone call about executive development for an executive who, I guess, 3 words, and of course we're not going to give the client. They said he wasn't a team player, he was a micromanager and a Gloria. What's unique about the military, which the private sector needs to get back to, is this sense of homecoming and belonging within organizations.
Right.
And the reason that we can build such strong teams is because we go through physical and mental challenges together, which builds something called shared adversity, an esprit de corps. But at the end of the day, everyone on our team understands it's not about you. It's not about you. It's not about me. It's about the team. And when you understand that, you actually demonstrate team ability, as George and I talked about it, amongst the 9 foundational attributes. The ability to put your desires and needs aside for the good of the organization. I only want people, as well as George, on my team that are going to challenge the status quo, that are going to make me elevate my game. And guys, I would rather be I'd rather be sitting on the bench of an NBA championship team than the star player for a team that never even gets to the playoffs. And that's what people like. I just love being on winning teams, whatever my role may be. And a lot of the private sector is losing that. And I mean, you look, I don't want to get this into politics, but you look at how divisive society is today. Everyone is out for themselves. And we're trying to create an organization within Talent War Group. And we turn away a lot of clients because we sense this. As we like to say, we're getting this painted on the wall. We either win as a team or we don't win it all. And that is a guiding principle of special operations. Guess what? It's also a guiding principle of some of the most highly successful businesses out there.
Right. George, anything you want to follow up on that?
No, I was just going to say, and Mike, correct me because I forget the number of years after the Army wrote the leadership manual and they added humility as the most important trait of a leader. 200 some years, and they added humility. There we go. And I'm the Army guy. Wow, I'm going to be suffering for that at some point, I'm sure. But yeah, the team ability, the humility in all of your leaders, and to the point, like Mike said, you're in the hiring process, you're selecting talent. You have got to have the humility to say that person's going to help me elevate my game. That makes all the difference in the world. And if you carry that into an interview and top talent sees that, they're like, hey, I want to be a part of that team.
Right.
So A players see in A players those attributes for success. In the interviewing process, it goes both ways.
Right.
So the top talent looks and they see that humility, that confidence, that team ability. They want to be part of something like that.
Yeah. George, how many guys, of the companies that you guys work with, and obviously companies are coming to work with you guys for, I would imagine, some transformation in their organization, but how many are leading with hiring being a priority? In that chapter, we talk about, hiring being secondary for most organizations. Like, do you see most organizations that hiring literally is just a secondary function to them?
Oh yeah. And most of the ones that I've worked for since I exited the military, I think, that's the nice thing about the book is they're both coming to Mike and I, and they're going, whoa, we had it wrong.
Right.
Hiring our talent is everything. And so the companies that are coming to us, if they're coming to us and saying, hey, we need 5 widgets of this, 5 widgets of that, and it's a people mill, those are the clients Mike's talking about. If leadership isn't first and those attributes aren't first, forget it. We don't work with them. But those people that are coming to us are saying, well, yeah, we now get it. And so help us do that. And because it's been a secondary function for so long for companies, turning that around, I mean, Mike and I see enormous impact immediately with what we bring to them.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, not to compare anything, but, I played collegiate football and a lot of the things in terms of the camaraderie that you're talking about when you guys get into, the training that you guys are doing. Same thing with football. It's like guys I haven't seen for 20 years. You go see them, and it's like your brothers again because you went through adversity together. What do you guys do? I know you guys do some leadership training. Do you guys help out with the organization in terms of like trying to develop something that they can model off of to build that?
You got to get them out of their comfort zone.
Yep.
So again, going back to special operations, the reason we push our candidates to their mental and physical limits is not because we're sadistic and we like to see people in pain. We understand something about psychology. It's at one's limits that true character comes out.
Right.
Now, we've had Olympic athletes that were gold medalists come through training and they quit within the first 2 weeks. Same with some NCAA football players who we naturally thought were like, oh, that guy went through double days in Florida. He's going to crush it. And one of the first to quit because they'd never really experienced failure in their lives before. Things had naturally come. I mean, they worked hard, but things naturally came easy to them. So leadership development, the last we saw, is a $366 billion industry, yet over 90% of the programs fail.
Right.
Because they take the approach of leadership through inoculation is what we call it. Is they get everyone in a classroom, they give them leadership training for a few days. It's almost like giving them a shot of leadership and saying, hey, go forth and do great things. It doesn't work. And in fact, George and I met with our other 3 co-authors of the new book we're writing on leadership development. And I think it's going to be fascinating. So we're excited for that one. We're in the infancy of it, but I think we should be able to turn this around in a year to a year and a half. You've got to get them outside the office. And so with our leadership development programs, one of the things we do and what we prefer to do is to take them into the wild, is what I say. And take them into the mountains, not something that's going to, truly, push people to their limits, but you get them a little dirty, you put them in the wilderness. We do some fun activities that are designed to reinforce behaviors that are relevant to the company. Even when you talk about culture, when people form their cultures, they usually throw flowery words up on the wall, but those words have no meaning to the behaviors that need to be driven within that industry or that company to drive results.
Right. Well, it's kind of like that famous quote that almost every company people are our most important asset, yet they've got nothing in their organization.
You know what? I remember somebody telling me that. So people are your most costly asset. Bad people are your highest risk. And most people don't think about it. People just say people in general, but it's talent. It's talent and hiring mediocre performers. And like we talked about those mistakes in hiring, you get bad talent in the door, you've just multiplied your problems exponentially, whether that's product, service, sales, employee relations, culture. Yeah, people are your most important asset. The right and good, talented people are your most important asset.
Yep. Love it. I want to kind of turn it a little bit here and talk about just when did you guys kind of pair up and start writing, the talent war?
God, I can't believe it's been that long. I don't. It's been a whirlwind, man.
We'll call it 5 years, 10.
Yeah, no, it was in 2019.
Okay.
I think we ended up turning the book around in a year and a half, George. Is that correct?
Yeah, little under, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, we moved pretty quickly. It was when we got to the final manuscript that I'm making a guess here. I think we went through the final manuscript like 10 times.
Yeah.
And finally, somebody's like, "Hey, you're going to hate your own book. Just get it to market." And it's picked up and made like some major traction.
Yeah, that's a killer book.
It's a niche book. A lot of people aren't going to pick up a book about building teams and hiring, but more than we anticipated. Yeah. And we tried to weave some funny stories that were sort of self-deprecating in there where we've made mistakes. Because as George says, this is not a zero-sum game. Right. He's still 80,000 hires collectively under his belt through all his teams. And he'll be the first to admit, I still make mistakes. Yeah. Someone will get past me. And that's because of biases. It's because, we fall in love with somebody very quickly during the hiring process. And we deviate from the processes that we know work, and that's when you make bad hires.
Yep. Now, what inspired the book? I'm curious, because from a marketing guys, I see this is just a golden play from a client acquisition standpoint. But was this book written from like, hey, we want to impact the market, we need to solve a problem? Or is this book written from, hey, we can create a resource that can help drive business? Or was it a little bit of both?
You know what? Honestly, we like George and I are disruptors. We like to say that we're disrupting the HR space.
Yep.
Because so many bad practices have been allowed to progress and grow. And I know George has a lot of frustrations, and I have a lot of frustrations. And we said, hey, you know what? That's great, and we can complain about the system, or we could put something out there that just starts a discussion. And I think the biggest value of the book, and George, disagree if you want, is the amount of people like yourself that we've gotten to like get in touch with our paths wouldn't have crossed otherwise.
Yep.
We have people reaching out that love the book. And we've got to meet a lot of people that are passionate in the space. I think the secondary effect that we didn't expect was for the business talent war group to really grow as much as it has. But the process with George was fun. We had a blast. We shaped some of our old preconceived notions, and we educated ourselves, dude. When you write a book, you're really educating yourself because you got to go out and interview people that are smarter than you, that are more credible in the space. And I think it's shaped George and I as leaders. And I think this next book, the authors that we have joining us, because we wanted to have fun. 5 authors is a lot.
Yeah.
We have the author of the attributes the 25 hidden drivers of optimal performance. We've got the director of player development for the Indianapolis Colts, who is a former special forces soldier. And then the smartest is a former CHRO, actually current CHRO again, who's an IO clinical psychologist. And so the conversation last night, we talked about leadership development, and everyone's like, dude, I love how you explained that point. I believe that, or I couldn't articulate it. So this one, standby, is going to be a lot of fun.
Ooh, I can't wait. What's the date?
Very impactful.
What's the launch date on that?
I think realistically between May and August of 2022.
Yeah.
George, that's probably accurate, right?
Yeah, I think you're right. If we leave the audiobook part out.
Well, the audio, I got to get the audio, man. That's where I'm grinding those
It's
things.
brutal. Absolutely
I don't ever
brutal.
want to do that again.
Yeah.
I'm listening to you. George, anything you have to say about just kind of the development of the book, and same as Mike there?
No, I think what I would emphasize is that, we go back to the humility piece. I know a ton about talent acquisition. There's not many people worked at scale, but when I'm articulating something, Mike would make it better.
Right.
And he would say, okay, man, this resonates a little bit better, and so the best idea wins concept, I think, is what propelled us to get through. And we wanted to be disruptors, but we had to make sure that anchored. And so, no, the process was, to a certain degree, we're both a little bit perfectionists, and we just wanted to nail things right. But, and Mike, my brother, I've got this ability where I'm just going to throw something out. He's going to, light it up the way that it needs to read, and vice versa. And, we think we landed in the right place. He's right at the end of the process. You kind of hate your book, and we go back and there's always things we could touch on, but no, we think we got the message across that, talent is everything.
I think we're probably looking at the book through rose-colored glasses, because during the midst of it, we're like, hey, did we make a really bad decision? Like, hey, is this thing ever going to come to fruition? Because you look at the chapter on the 9 foundational attributes. That was a back and forth discussion where, because we did have a contributor, Dr. Josh Cotton, who designs assessments for a living. He's the director of assessments for all of Honeywell, and he worked with the SEAL teams on how to better assess candidates. And somebody would say, this has to be in there, and other people would be like, well, it doesn't have to. It's sort of nested within this. And so that was back and forth, and that chapter went way too long just due to personal debate.
Yeah.
Now, did you guys feel any sense of, I know a lot of the clients that I work with, when it comes to just putting themselves out there in a basic, and you guys are writing a book, which is, one of the biggest pieces of content you can create. But did you ever feel like any imposter syndrome? Like, who am I to write this damn book?
All the freaking time. It's so, one, there's a fear of putting yourself out there.
Yep.
Because you know what, in this world of the digital warriors, who can hide behind a screen and make comments, nobody likes that. I don't like that. George doesn't like that. When somebody makes a bad comment, it hits me. I could kill them, but it still hits me. But
he's right.
Yeah. If you ask George, there's a lot of people that could have done a better job with this, but that doesn't matter at the end of the day. It's who steps into the arena.
Yeah.
And George and I were willing to make that sacrifice.
Yeah, and one of the things that Mike and I took great care about, like we said earlier, was we've made our fair share of mistakes, and that's what we wanted to highlight first.
Right.
The second thing is we wanted to be broad based on the principles. This is not a how-to guide. We still get people, oh, well, what's the best interview question, or what's the best process?
Right.
It's like, no, this is the development that you have to do. This is the work you have to do. These are the principles behind it. So yeah, it was like, as soon as we, kind of hit the launch button, it was like, okay, kind of, all right, hunker down, what's coming. But at the end of the day, I couldn't be more proud of the work that we did together. We can always be better, but absolutely proud of what we put out there, and we'll figure out ways to keep getting better. And Mike's right. This next book,
I think
it's going to be good. Tough, but good.
Yeah, with this crew of leaders, I mean, if we
Pretty
fail,
frightening.
that's on us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you guys have written a great book, and I mean, humility about it is obviously stands out very, 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 very bright. I mean, but the book is phenomenal. And I know that everybody that has recommended it to me before I got it was like, dude, you got to read this. And it's so cool. You know, I just think it's awesome hearing, you know, you guys, a couple badasses, you know, coming from the military, going to write a book, and everybody thinks that, oh, I'm the only one that's afraid to put myself out there. And you were, you know, on the outside, two of the toughest dudes out there, and you're still a little bit hesitant about, holy shit, what's going to happen here. So thank you. I appreciate that. Appreciate you guys. I noticed one thing you guys do too, from a marketing standpoint, is you guys are just everywhere with your videos. And
that's putting yourself out there, having to do those videos.
Yeah, that's the naked part for sure. But did you guys start doing that before or after, you know, the book?
We started slightly before, I believe, George, right?
Yeah. We're trying to generate pre-sales and just awareness, so when it launched that we were ready. And then we've gotten into a really, really good habit. And what Mike and I are trying to do now is kind of reinforce those lessons. You know, Mike and I kind of pair up and say, okay, you know, where can we be additive to this, to these challenges and solutions? You know, what can we throw out there? And it, as Mike said, it's not about us, but we know that there's a lot of people that really want to get it right, and we want to be that resource.
Yeah.
George and I are not one for social media. Hell, when I was part of JSOC, we couldn't have social media accounts. And I think I started my first social media accounts in like 2017 as part of the MBA program, because they passed information on Facebook. And this again, we were very uncomfortable with doing these videos because we're just not, we're not grandiose people. You know, when it comes to weekend, George goes home to his lovely bride. I go home to mine, and those are our best friends. There's a brotherhood behind George and I, but we don't necessarily like doing the videos, but we understand it's a necessary component of the marketing because it extends our reach. And there's a lot of people that we want to be heard by. And if we don't do this, we just will never cross their paths. But the LinkedIn videos have picked up well beyond what we thought they were capable of. And that's where we do our hunting. Yeah, we repost them on Instagram and Facebook, but LinkedIn is the only professional network that still exists. And that's where we do the majority of our marketing.
Yeah, no, it's been fun to watch you guys, you know, do that. I've been doing videos since 2008 with my dad when YouTube finally came out, and want to talk about a god awful journey. My goodness, my first videos were just straight shit. They were trash. But
so were Gary Vaynerchuk's.
Yeah,
exactly. I mean, they were awful. And look at where he's at today. I mean, getting people to take the leap, it's difficult for us to try something new and put yourself out there. Hey guys, every effort is a grassroots effort at some point.
Right.
And you know, either it works out and then you adapt and do something differently, but if it starts to pick up traction, you're doing something right.
Yeah. Well, I think you bring up a good point of, you know, you don't have to love it to do it. You know, I mean, even though I've been doing video for long and people from the outside might think, oh, this guy likes to be on camera, like the attention. It's like, no, it's a necessary component of doing it. And I don't think at this stage, no matter what business you're in, if you're being quiet, you're going to be gone. You know, you've got to be out there, putting yourself out there full throttle. Video is obviously a great way to do that, and just embracing the journey of, hey, you know, even the guys that are, you know, been doing it for a while get a little bit nervous, and you know, but it's just such a great way to tell your story and put yourself out there. So I just applaud what you guys are doing on that end of things. And watching you guys from the outside is just it's a cool thing.
It's weird, you know, and we, you know, I don't know, Mike and I, you know, look, we take criticism all the time. Hey, if it makes our game better, if it lifts it up, hey man, let's go with it.
Right.
I have two professional level kids. They're like, hey dad, I saw that video. You know, they're banging away on their phone. Hey, you could do this, you could do this. I'm like, okay. So
yeah, I usually get
it's like my kids are watching now, they're professionals. It's weird.
Yeah, that's, my kids aren't quite that age yet, so they can't. They actually sit around. They might be watching me right now on my wife's laptop. They watch me and enjoy watching dad, and then talk a little crap to him later. So, going into like some of your guys' personal, you know, you've talked about a lot of high level, you know, just ways of showing up essentially. Mike, what are you doing right now to like feed your greatness? What are you doing every day to tune yourself in on a personal level?
Jesus, what is he not doing? I'm sorry to interrupt you, Mike.
Well, I
I
just want
thought
to
I
go ahead
was
and
a
take
busy
some notes
person.
here.
No, I can't keep up.
The same goes for George. And this, high drive people, and we're not going to say we're high drive people. We would like to think we are, but ultimately that's not for us to determine. This also applies to leaders. You don't get to choose if you're a good leader or not. Other people do.
Right.
So I'm just trying to learn, because remember, I'm almost freshly retired, 2018.
Right.
But an opportunity came from the book through Men's Journal, who did an article on the book, and then asked me to write a recurring column called Everyday Warrior. Then they reached out to me and said, we want to stand up a new brand. So we're launching a brand, which is going to be fitness apparel, supplements, and grooming, both men and women's, with a lot of backing. It's a private equity backed company. And that launches around September, October timeframe. One of the things with that is we want to put a very positive message out. The name of the company is ADA, and one step at a time. We want to put a positive message. We want to build a community. So it is the CPG, consumer product goods arena, which I've never played in. So I've got a big hurdle ahead of me, but I'm taking the founder and the CEO seat for that company. There are going to be some cool things, because we're going to talk about the what we call the ADA way, which is based off the whole person concept, being strong mentally, physically, and spiritually to be as balanced as possible. This goes into human performance. But one of the cool things that officially we should announce June 1 is that myself and two other tier 1 operators from Canada and Great Britain are going to go jump into Mount Everest in October, November timeframe. So always trying to find ways to push myself. The highest drop zone there is 17,000 feet. So that's the highest drop zone in the world. I'll give it a shot. Hopefully I don't break my freshly replaced hip.
There you go. George?
For me, I think, writing the second book, going on the journey again with Mike is something to look forward to. For me, it's a little bit more simple. The soccer season's back up. I'm a competitive player. Hoping I don't get rained out this weekend, and then being a grandparent. Those things keep me busy. I got some babysitting appointments this weekend.
There you go.
But no, driving this company, helping it reach its potential. We don't know what we don't know. And Mike's point is, we're always learning. We're always trying to get better. How do we deliver better to clients? How do we do something that really disrupts and changes, the story about talent, human resources, human capital? So yeah, totally energized about what comes each day. Go to the gym, make sure I fight aging to the best of my ability, and get after it.
We've told George to quit soccer because we're tired of him coming in from a weekend of matches. Oh, I broke my toe. Or I sprained my ankle.
This is not Mike.
Stop,
this
dude.
is my wife talking through Mike.
Like, you don't want to care about his injury right now. Yeah. If he plays this weekend, I guarantee he's going to blow out his ACL. It's going to be something, but he never stops. He won't stop playing.
Yeah,
it's born in you. It's ingrained. You're not going to get rid of that. You can't take the competitor out of the competitor.
Yeah, it's the only sport I'm built for.
The only thing I would say, Donnie, is if he could pick up an American sport, we would support him full-heartedly.
little flag football might be a little bit better for you there.
There
George.
you go.
I don't know. I did some flag football a couple months back and totally dang near broke my toe with my kids. So
hey, I think everybody looking can see you too, and they can see me. I am not built for football. They're just not.
I don't understand that. Donnie playing a collegiate football player playing against kids in flag football, where were you just dominating the kids?
Oh yeah, you just out there stiff arming. It actually was. It was a play. I was feeling myself a little bit too much and went out there and threw a move. And next thing you know, I got up and I'm like, oh, this toe doesn't feel right. And I went home after with my wife and I was like crying. I'm like, babe, I need to go to the. I don't know what's going on. But yeah, it's a little bit different when you're a little bit older. So yeah,
just a little.
Guys, thank you so much. What do you guys, when it comes to the company, I mean, where are you are you guys ready to take over the world? I mean, what are you guys fired up with the company right now? Are you guys in growth mode? It looks like you just hired a CEO or COO, I believe.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we went out and hired somebody smarter than us. This is one of George's proteges, but she thought she was going to come in, but we're like, nope, you're taking the lead seat. And this also frees George and I up to go hit the road with clients. But Carly Walden is an Air Force cryptologist. She spoke six languages. She's as smart as they come. George.
Yeah, it's scary smart. You know, you run into those people, and then the personality and the leadership attributes on top of all of that intellectual horsepower. We were really lucky. We're really lucky because she's got to get up every day and look at two knuckleheads and go, really? Is this what I'm in charge of?
Yeah.
And she has the patience. We should probably put that attribute in there somewhere, that she has the patience to work with the two of us, which even our wives would say we're not easy, but you know, always learning. And where do we hope to take the company? You know, the talent advisory and talking about how to hire better. You know, now we're starting to get that traction where people are coming in, and we had that call, and you know, they're talking to Mike, how do we start training leadership so it's not an inoculation? How do we build things? And I think that's our next big evolution, but we want to get into it the right way, in the smart way. So it's not just executive search, it's not just the hiring piece. It's really about making people smarter, understanding the, you know, the leadership and the talent component behind the business ecosystem.
Got it. Love it. Mike, go ahead. You got a thought. You're ready to.
No, it's so we want to build a company that, you know, it's easy to make the executive search. Well, it's not easy, but we're good at making the executive search placements.
Right.
That's great. But we would rather come into a company and build the systems that George is talking about, not just a best in class talent acquisition system. Because if you have that, but you don't have the leadership component, as George says, you're going to become a revolving door of talent.
Yep.
So this system, and we were crunching the numbers with the client yesterday on developing both sides. And I mean, they have over 20 million in payroll. And, you know, just a few changes could save millions to their bottom line, lowering attrition and sort of increasing engagement amongst their employees. And because organic systems aren't in place to really give those numbers of disengagement and attrition to leaders, they don't think they have a problem, and they do.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, I think you guys are really leading the way for what I think that the recruiting industry, executive search, whatever you want to call it, talent acquisition, is really ripe for, which is, you know, shifting away from the recruiter being like the commodity of somebody putting a body in a seat and really solving a bigger problem at the organizational level. And I've seen that just from the outside for a long time of so many people are just looking at, hey, how do I make the placement versus like, hey, your organization has a problem here. And I think a lot of recruiters don't, you know, going into the imposter syndrome, they don't have the confidence to be able to just flat out go tell an organization, your process stinks. Here's what we can do to fix it. You know,
yeah, we have that. And
talent.
There's one other thing that I think is really separated us, and it, you know, and we knew this, and you know, we tried to manifest it through the book. And Mike said it really, really well. When companies come to us and they say, hey, we're looking for X, Y, and Z, and they're rotating on the experience, or is the phrase that you're probably common with, hey, I want somebody who's been to the show before. And, you know, I want them from this competitor or that competitor. You know, our firm is choosing leaders. We're choosing by attributes, not. So even on the executive search side, if we're in there coaching the leadership, hey, that's great. But the leader that we put in there is going to be one that's a seed that's going to grow, we hope, you know, with those attributes, with those, you know, core rock solid leadership principles, versus just somebody who, hey, I'm in search and I went out and I found somebody, your competitor, that I could pull out and plug and play over in your organization, because we know that that's not predictive of success. So how we look at it at placing executives is a little bit different than most, if not completely.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's ripe for opportunity, you know, and you guys are going to probably continue to make a bunch of noise because, you know, I think organizations are ready to solve that problem of finding the right leaders and the right talent, and not just, hey, let's keep a broken hiring system going and hiring process going.
Yep.
How can everybody that's listening, how can they get connected with you guys? What's the best way to follow you guys and things like that?
Well, first and foremost, you can find us at talentwargroup.com, do follow us on LinkedIn, Talent War Group. Mike at Talent War Group, George at talentwargroup.com. Obviously, if you can and you haven't read the book, we would appreciate it. Appreciate your feedback and connect with us, follow our content, and more than anything else, help share that content. We are trying to disrupt, but we're also trying to make a positive difference in that we do. So any and all support or feedback is very much appreciated.
Excellent. Mike, anything else on that?
Yeah, no, we as you said, we put out a lot of content on LinkedIn, talentwargroup.com. We love to have the conversation. With leaders that think they may have a problem, and we can give you a sense of the services we provide. But I think the clients we've had will speak volumes about what we've done for them in setting them up for future success. And that's the whole point, is we come in and we want to leave a system in place, and then you never call us again, even though we want your partnership. Ultimately, we set you up with that system where you've got it. You can grow it on your own. We don't want to be that organization that you have to keep coming back to for each of your placements.
Love it. You guys have delivered a tremendous amount of value today. I appreciate your guys' time and everything. If you could just, I'm going to ask you one last time, if you could just leave the audience with one piece of advice, like what's one piece of advice you could leave the audience with, Mike? I'm going to start with you.
I'm going to leave that to George.
I knew it.
Which he unfortunately thought of after the book was written. Yeah. And I looked at him and I'm like, I almost wanted to give him the backhand.
Yeah.
How do you think of that? Go ahead, George.
So if you're out there listening, you should be treating your human capital with the same discipline, rigor, and focus as you do your financial capital. That's how you become great.
Love it. Love it. Human capital, number one priority in each organization. Ladies and gentlemen, Mike Sarraille, George Randle. This will be live on the YouTube channel in the next couple of days. You guys can check it out there if you want to watch a replay. George, Mike, thank you for joining me. We'll see you next week.